Hello, I'm Royce Kruger. I'm here to share with you in-depth, a real deep view of the 8 keys. Today we're going to share with you and look into number 2, which is right here on our chart. It's the second one. The first one was discover principles. This one is write your core beliefs. Hopefully, after you've discovered principles, you will want to make your beliefs wrap around those principles. You'll see the value of principles. After you do create your core beliefs, what we'll do is we're going to work on goals. We'll be in the next session. After we work on goals, what we want to do is we want to work on relationships so that we're working well with people. After we have good relationships, then we can really focus on the execution of our goals to make sure that we execute those goals properly. To make sure that we're on track, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are measuring our progress in achieving our goals. And then, of course, when we are achieving those goals, doing very, very well, what we want to do is share our wealth, share our happiness with other people. And number 8 talks about continuously improving so that we can improve our discovery of principles, improve our beliefs, improve our goals, improve our relationships, improve our execution, improve our measurement, and improve our ability to share. So that's just a quick summary of where we are on the 8 key cycle. And what we're going to focus on right now is key number 2, which is to write the core beliefs. It's really important at our core to have a set of beliefs that guide us and direct us. As I read history, people try to understand the world around them, and they try to understand what will help them to navigate the world around them. And each one of us, whether we formally sit down or do it or not, we create in our mind a set of values. We create a rationalization for what this world is, and this is the window through which we see this world. What we're talking about here in Write Your Core Beliefs is we want to select those beliefs that we want to actively make a part of our life. Making the choice of which core belief you're going to follow is very valuable because it changes the direction of your life. If you're not achieving the results you want to achieve in your life, go all the way back and say, what are my core beliefs? What are my core values? This requires us to have a great sense of self-awareness. And during this whole session, I'm going to be talking about many different values, many different beliefs, and what we'll be trying to do by doing that is allowing you to evaluate whether you have that type of a core belief or core value in your life. Now, I say it's core because it's governing. When something is core to you, it's something that governs your life. And so we're talking about these beliefs that you're going to select that are going to govern your life. You already have a set of beliefs that governs your life. You may not have sat down and selected these. These may have been things that you just learned and probably did just learn them. They just came to you, and through your association with your parents, through teachers, through friends, through business associates, your work, and so forth, television you watch. And these came together and started to form the rules by which you decided to live your life. They are the guides by which you live your life. That's why we say that they govern your life. And so what we want to do is now, in this session, do some self-discovery, some self-awareness, and do some real active selection of which one of those core beliefs you're going to choose to guide your life. By the end of the session, I would like you to have selected about 7 core beliefs, no more than that, at least 2 or 3, that these will be the key guidelines that you say you're going to follow in your life. So let's dive in and let's begin. Let me do a quick overview of this session. The first thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about some great people. I've got a couple of examples of what I consider to be great people. These are people who have influenced positively the lives of other people. And at their core, they had some core beliefs, some core values, and we're going to discuss what some of those are and some of the implications it had on their life and the life of others. Then I'm going to expand that, and we're going to talk about some possible, desirable human qualities that you may want to include in your life. We'll evaluate some of those. We, in particular, are going to spend a little bit of time and talk about money and the influence it has in our lives, and how that may be positive, how that may be negative. So we're going to focus on money. We're also going to focus on some principles, a long list of principles that may be useful for you to use in your life to see if this will give you greater wealth and will give you greater happiness. Also, what I'm going to do is talk about the importance of writing down your core beliefs in some form of a statement of purpose, a statement of direction, an end goal you want in your life. Some people call it a personal mission statement. And the very last thing we'll do is I'm going to walk you through a mission statement creation guide, a statement of purpose creation guide, a way in which you can write down the core beliefs that will allow you to be very effective in your life. So let's dive in and let's talk about some great people. The first great person that I selected is someone who is known for writing down his values and practicing them. This is a very famous inventor in the United States. He lived many years ago and he helped with the foundation of the United States, and his name is Benjamin Franklin. He's very famous because of the many inventions he had. You know, he's many times attributed for many things that we even see in our modern day world of the lights and certain things, electricity, these types of things. Benjamin Franklin was kind of a unique person because he took a very active approach to inculcating, consuming values in his life. He chose 13 specific values that he wanted to be the guidelines for his life. And one of which he chose, and I'm going to share 4 of them with you, one of which is called temperance. Now, temperance is not a word that we hear very often in the world today, and by that he said it this way. He says, eat not to dullness, do not drink not to elevation. In other words, temperance would be don't eat too much, don't drink too much, don't become a drunkard. And we would maybe in our modern days, we'd say something like this: moderation in all things, be moderate in what you're doing. Be careful not to do too much of any one thing. Make sure that you're founded so you test and try a variety of things in your life. On foods, don't eat the same food all the time. Don't eat too much of the food. Allow yourself to take care of your body, and in his particular case, temperance, he was focusing on his body and the physical qualities of good health. Another value that he had was order, and he specifically stated this. I've often wondered if a great inventor like him could be orderly, because I see these crazy minds of an inventor having all things strewn around their labs, being kind of messy and so forth. But he did have a value of being orderly in what he's doing. He says, let all your things have their place. Let each part of your business have its time. So do things in order. Be orderly in the way you organize things. I know if I have an orderly desk, if it's clean, I know if my life is in order, that things are set aside neatly, I can find them easier and so forth. I know that having orderliness in my life is something that's very useful. And what Benjamin Franklin would do to make sure that he was focusing on these types of values, he'd write one of these values down and he would put it in his pocket, and through the day he'd look at that value and he'd ask himself, am I living this value? I suggest you do the same thing when you get into living your values, is make sure you're holding yourself accountable for living those values. Resolution is the next virtue that he believed in, the value that he had. He says, resolve to perform what you ought. Perform without fail what you resolve. I think in today's world, we would say resolution is probably commitment. It's a commitment to achieve and do what we promise to other people. So be careful when you make a promise, and when you do make a promise, make sure that you fulfill it. I think living to promises, living to these challenges that we give to ourselves and others, enables us to become better people, and enables us to really be trustworthy, worthy of other people's trust. The next virtue that he talked about is frugality. Now, when I think of a frugal person, I think of a person who kind of counts their money twice before they spend it. He put it this way: make no expense but to do good to others or yourself. For example, waste nothing. So in our world today, I think we have limited resources around us. We're conscious of our environment. We want to be careful with energy that we use. We live in a green world. I think he would say, be frugal in this world that we are in. Now, these were the values that guided his life, and there were other values that he had. And I believe that the greatness that he achieved and his ability to invent, to be the statesman, to be the politician that he was, and so forth, was because he consciously tried to live a set of values, and these values became inculcated in his life, and he started to live them, he started to demonstrate them. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Now let's go on to the next person. This person has been one of my great heroes through my whole life since I discovered the man and learned about him. In fact, I've had the opportunity to have dinner with his grandson and his wife. And it was really a special experience in my life. And this is Mahatma Gandhi. And I had dinner with his son, Rajmohan. And I had an opportunity to check out these values and to learn more about them. Now, Gandhi, we know for his greatness, for the simplicity of his life. We know him because he was really a strong seeker of truth. He was truly a person that tried to discover principles. He is a person that tried to discover truths that would guide people to greater happiness. I think he was less concerned about wealth as far as riches go, but a wealth of knowledge, wealth of friends, wealth of influence. And he certainly was a man of great influence. And even after his death, his influence continues in this world. His first principle that we will recognize in his life is nonviolence. He said, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind." If you think about it, if we get into a fight, one person takes an eye, another one takes an eye, soon the whole world is blind. He is a person that would be against definitely the terrorism that we see in the world today. He created the sense that it's useless to go about fighting, but there's much better ways to resolve our differences. Martin Luther King picked up this flag of nonviolence and had great influence in moving the United States towards moving away from the racial inequality that it had for many, many years and is always trying to overcome. So nonviolence was one of his great values for Gandhi. Another one that he had, and you'd recognize because he was Hindu, is vegetarianism, but he didn't do it just because of the religious value. He did it also because it was very practical for his health. In fact, he held to rather a strict vegetarian diet, and because of that, he had good physical strength and he had great physical endurance. Another value that he had is simplicity. He felt those in social service should live a simple life as well as a spiritual life, but he felt that simplicity was good. He was the man that is known for that he would create the cloth that he would make his own garments out of. So he believed in simplicity. He did not own and live in large houses or anything that was gregarious. What he did is lived with simplicity. Another value he had was faith. He was a man who studied the many great religions of the world. He knew the Upanishads as well as the Bible. He knew the Quran as well as the Bible. He knew and understood and accepted the religions of the world and tried to find the truths in them and use the faith that he gained by learning those things. So these were the values that guided his life. Now, I'm not asking you to be a Benjamin Franklin. I'm not asking you to be a Mahatma Gandhi. But I do want you to learn from these great men the principle that you can use in your life, which is let values, let virtues, let principles guide your life. Take the time to select a few. So what I'd like you to do is open up to your application workbook. And for this section, you will see number 1, it's going to ask you a question. It says, list 7 values that are very important to you. So take just a moment and list those values and write them down. Think about it. You may want to turn off the DVD and so you have enough time to do this. And if you don't have enough time to do it now, list the number that you can, 2 or 3, and then come back to it later, because having a list of, I would say, anywhere from 5 to 7 values will be very useful as guidelines in your life. In this next section, I'd like to talk to you about the concept of being a human being. I make a little bit of joke in English. I'd say, so many of us in this world are human doings because we're rushing out doing things. We're also human havings because we go about trying to collect things. What I'm going to suggest to you is to be a human being. I've already shown this to you in the circle of be, do, have. This will be a theme throughout the 8 keys. What I want you to focus on is this being in here. And this being is where we find our values. This is where we have our beliefs, and hopefully we base those upon principles. So what I'm suggesting to you, I would like you to be a person that has values guiding your life. Now, you have values guiding your life already, but I'm talking about the values you decide you want to follow, that you've chosen for yourself. So what you're going to have in life, what you're going to do in life, is based upon who you are in life, this being in here. And that being is based upon the values, this foundation of values and belief that you have in your life. And so we really want to make this a focus. Let me give you an example of maybe 2 or 3 of those, just to give you an insight into how this will work. Okay, let's take, for example, the simple principle or value of love. Some people have a lot of self-love. They focus only on themselves, and they focus less on other people. Normally, they have a difficult time in being happy because it's difficult to really love yourself and find happiness there. It's my observation. I'm talking about the love that you give to other people. Now, the love I'm talking about here is not the sex love. I'm talking about the love, the caring for other people, the serving other people, the showing respect to them, the taking the time and serving them and helping them and lifting them and doing those things that will enable them to be happier people. It's real interesting, I find, with love, when you give it to others, when you share it with others, it comes back to you again. It's some of this bread that you cast on the waters that comes back to you. I think it's very good to share love and to give love to other people. So I believe that when you're a loving, caring person, you will do those things that will make you much happier, and you will have around you friends and people who care for you, and you'll find greater happiness in your life. Connected to that's another word that I think is very good, and it's that of service. I think truly that each day we should take the time to serve other people. It's so important that we help other people, not just serve ourselves, but enable other people. What happens when we do that? We find a richness of friends, we find a richness of happiness and contentment in our life. And regardless of having great riches in our life, at least we will have great happiness in our life because of the great service that we provide. So I challenge you each day to find a way to serve another person, to help lift them and take them to a new level. I know recently I took an opportunity for an older gentleman that's in my neighborhood to do some activities with him that he's wanted to do. He's almost blind. His wife has passed away. He faces tremendous challenges, has tremendous loneliness in his life, and he was so excited to get out and do these activities with me. And it was such a great blessing in my life to be able to share with him that time and to find that happiness and joy that comes into his life because of the service that I provided to him. The next principle I'd like to talk about is that of forgiveness. This is a great value. It's a great belief. I think if we had forgiveness in this world, we could solve some of the great problems we have. I challenge those nations of the world that find themselves holding grudges for generations after generations to start forgiving and letting go, because all it's doing is destroying their own life. It does not destroy the life of other people. There's a story I read recently that was in the last few years that has really touched my life, something that happened back in 2006 that has really made a difference to me, and it's a principle that I deeply believe in. In the Amish community, the religious Amish community in the state of Pennsylvania in the United States, in this small community there was a school, and in the school they had some students studying. And as these young women were studying in the school, into the school barged a gentleman in a rage with a gun, and he shot and he injured 10 of the girls, and 5 of them died. And it was very interesting to see how this Amish religious community responded to him. Usually when there is a death of someone in your family or someone that's close to you or in your community, there's an immediate desire to have revenge. It's going back to Gandhi's eye for an eye, non-violencing, but people want to have the revenge. They want to have justice, as they call it. Well, what happened in this community was rather amazing, how quickly the Amish people forgave the killer, forgave him quickly and completely. They held their funeral for their daughters that had passed away, and the next day was the funeral of the killer. And that Amish community went to that funeral, embraced, and let the family of the killer know that they were forgiven. So this man who'd done the killing, they did not hold any grudges to the family, and they had not forgotten, but they had let that go out of their life. They had forgiven. And it was rather amazing because they provided aid and help to that family. Even years later, they have now provided help and aid to that family. And this is the family of the very person that killed their daughters. They destroyed the school. They got rid of it, so that memory is gone. And then they moved on with their life. Yes, I'm sure from time to time they may mourn the passing of those loved ones, but they are not letting the canker occur in their soul of allowing any hatred to be there. They quickly forgave. This forgiveness principle took place in my life when I had a woman that I know very well come to me who was divorced. And her husband had, in infidelity, had done something that had offended her and had offended the family, and she divorced him because of that. She came to me and asked me counsel what I should do, and I suggested to her what she should do is immediately forgive him and let it go. And that she should, even in the future, try to build a friendship so that the daughter that was a product of the marriage would not be harmed, and also that her heart would not carry around the hatred. And to my wonderful amazement and pleasure, this woman forgave the man and did years later become friends again. And the daughter feels much better about mother and father, a little bit confused because they're separated, but much better because she does not hear nasty things being talked about by the other spouse and so forth. And she understands the friendship that exists now between her parents. I suggest to you, be quick to forgive. Be quick to allow those things that people do to you pass, and you will find that you no longer harbor those negative feelings in your life, and you will be released of that burden of hatred in your life. And it's a terrible, terrible burden to have in your life. See, the choices that you make here, these values that you have, create who you are. These are the actions you take, and this creates the qualities that you have. I've mentioned some values that I think will lead you to greater happiness. Okay? But I also believe that you can live values that will lead you to greater wealth. I think all of those things that I just discussed with you will enable you to be a wealthier person. These will allow you to go on and to be much happier and much wealthier in your life. So let's go back to these 7 values that you had. In question number 2, I want you to look at those 7 values that you wrote down. Then I want you to write a description of who you will become, what impact you expect to have on your life when you live those values. So take a moment, open up your workbook, write down when you live the 7 values, who you think you will become and what you would like to become by living those values. Now I'd like to take a moment and talk to you about what happens in our life when our core value is money. In my discussion of this, don't take me wrong. I think money is very important. I enjoy having money. It gives me some pleasures in my life. However, I've observed people that make money the only value in their life or the dominant value. It just dominates everything that they have in their life. And what happens to a person when they have that dominant value in their life? What I find is they're constantly working on their profession. There's no time for other things. There's no time for enjoyment. They're measuring their self-image based upon the size of their bank account. They might even measure it by the number of possessions they have, because maybe that's what the money is translated into in their life, is into having possessions. And I find these people having less of a personality that is enjoyable to be around, because their conversation almost inevitably will go to money. It seems to me that this is a warped situation. Now, luckily, I don't know many people this way, but if money is of paramount value in your life, I caution you, make it one of a few values in your life, because if you lose your money and that's all that you value, you'll lose a sense of self-worth, and you'll lose a sense of wanting to live. In fact, during economic downturns, how often do we see people go through suicides simply because they have lost their money? And there's much more to life than just money. Now, money's important in this world because it facilitates so many things. Be careful of your worship of money, because it could warp your personality, and it could change the type of person you are. So what I'm trying to do is I'm suggesting, of the 7 values, maybe one of them could be money, but have 6 others that will help balance your life so it gives meaning to why you have money. It gives a sense of purpose of what you will do with money, because the happiest people I find who are wealthy are the ones who are sharing it, and I think that's very valuable. Let me go on to describe some of the other possible principles that you may want to use in your life. Those principles that would be useful for you. Let me just take a minute to do this. One value I want to talk about is that of being respectful. I have an opportunity to travel to many wonderful cultures of the world. And the cultures I really enjoy being in is where people are respectful of other people. I believe that parents teach their children to be respectful, but there are some cultures where it becomes a tradition, it becomes a core value, and I see people respecting each other. I, in particular, love to be in the country of Japan, because in Japan they really are respectful of other people. Another value that I believe is very important is courage. Courage is important, and especially when it comes to expressing your opinion and expressing what's on your mind. I think we have a little bit too much silence in the world, that we don't express ourselves well. Now, sometimes we have people who are hyper-expressive, meaning they probably express themselves too much. And sometimes I'd like to see them quiet a little bit. So you have to balance it with that humility and your courage, find a fine balance in there. But have the courage to express yourself, because you and your courage to express yourself can make a huge difference in the quality of other people's lives. Be patient. We live in a world of almost instant gratification. I kind of joke about it as being a McDonald's life, because you can walk into a McDonald's, order a hamburger, you instantly get your hamburger, you can sit down and eat it and consume it, and within a minute of 5 or 10 minutes you can be fed with your hamburger, and you're out the door racing again. Take the time to have some fine dining in your life. Be patient, make your order, wait for it to be served graciously, enjoy the conversation in between. Be patient in life. That's one way, is with food. But also be like the farmer. The farmer in the spring plants the seeds, plants the crop, and then patiently tends to it and lets it grow to its fruition. This is as particularly true as you try to change your life, as you go about successfully creating this wealth and this happiness you want. Be patient. It takes time to change human behavior. Apologize. Don't let pride prevent you from apologizing. If you've harmed someone, or you've done something that has offended them, be quick, be fast in going to them and asking for forgiveness. Give them a sincere apology. Don't carry around that pridefulness in your life that prevents you from apologizing and creating a better relationship with people. I suggest also that you be gentle, that you be sensitive to people. Now, from culture to culture, as I've traveled, there's different degrees of sensitivity and gentleness. Do that which is appropriate in the culture where you are. A good sign of gentleness to me is when someone listens far more than they talk. The gentleness is the way you handle and talk to people, and you watch their feelings, you watch their eyes. Be careful in your communications. Another thing I suggest you do is accept other people. There are some unusual people in this world with some unusual characteristics. Let us not be caught up in making fun of them. Let us accept them who they are and the differences that they have. When we do this, we'll find our lives are much happier, and they're much happier too. I suggest to you in your life, be industrious. When we're industrious, we work hard. Working hard was a virtue that my father taught me. My mother said, "Why don't you go work with my brother on the farm?" And I worked that summer all summer long, and at the end of it, what I earned was 2 sheep. And those sheep I sold at auction for $96. But the payment I received of the 2 sheep and the money of when they were sold at auction is really not what I earned that summer, as I learned how to work. I learned how to be industrious. And I've made it a motto for myself in life to be as industrious as I possibly can, because I'm so much happier than when I'm busy working and creating things that are good. The next thing I want you to talk about and think about with your family and others is the virtue of expectations. Clarify expectations with other people. Don't make assumptions. The best thing you can do is say, if you're going to accomplish something, talk about the time frame in which you're going to do it. Make sure that there's clarity. I always made sure with my dating teenagers that they knew what time they should be home and what expectation I had on their behavior that they would have. And I would talk to them about it when they returned, so there's some accountability. I believe in the principle of loyalty. Be loyal to those who are absent. What does that mean? That means don't talk about people behind their back. Don't say anything out of the presence of a person that you would not be willing to say to their face. Hold yourself to that standard. Be loyal to them. And in the service of your companies, be loyal to your company. Help your company be the best that it can be. If you see a boss or someone in the company that's doing something that's disadvantageous to the organization, be loyal to that boss by going to them and letting them know that what they're doing could be offensive, could be harmful to the organization. That's showing great loyalty. As I mentioned earlier, be humble. Have humility. I think far more is done, far more influence is exerted when someone is humble versus being prideful and being too pushy or shovey in people's life. So have humility. Another one is be teachable. Be willing to learn. An open mind and to hear and to see and understand someone's opinion is very valuable. It allows you to feel and understand their viewpoint. And it enlarges your mind. It allows you to grow. I think creating that type of mental capacity is very valuable in our lives. The next thing is give value. We're going to talk about this more in detail later, but give value. Do those things that are valuable to other people. In fact, if you want to be wealthy, this is the core concept. Create value and you can sell it. Create great skills and you can sell it. You can become very wealthy by creating value. And when something is very valuable to people, you can sell it for more money And the more value that you create in it, the more money that you can make, the greater wealth that you can achieve. Learn. Learn from your weaknesses. Learn from your failings. Learn all around you. Watch, observe. Keep your eyes, ears constantly going. Observe and watch people. Now, what happens when you do all of these things? What happens is, I think, you become a person of greater wealth, greater health, and you're able to do far more in life. And you become a person that, as I would say, is mature. You become a person that is of great wisdom when you do these things. Now, what are the sources of values like this? Where do you learn these types of values? I would suggest to you, think about what your parents taught you when you search for your values. Parents are great teachers of values. Look at your family, your siblings, your parents, your aunts, your uncles. I am so glad that I had aunts and uncles and knew them in my mother's side of the family, my father's side of the family as I grew up, because it taught me many, many things. I might say sometimes I even learned one or two bad things, but that allowed me to grow and to learn. Another one is teachers. I remember once I was working for a gentleman. He was a recluse, a very wise person. Usually about once a week he'd invite me into his home to have some drink, something to drink, and we would just chat. And it was a little social occasion for him, which he didn't have much of, and which he was happy of. He enjoyed living alone. And his wife, who is a rather socialite, lived in a big city. We lived out in the country, and he enjoyed the lone life that he had. But he said to me once, he said, "Royce," he says, "what university are you going to?" And I listed off 2 or 3 top universities. He says, "Why are you going there?" I says, "Well, because they're good names, and I think the good names of the school will help me in the future." And he looked at me, and these are the words that he says. He says, "Royce, do not go to a school just because of its good name. Go to a school because of the good teachers. Find the greatest minds in the world and learn from them." And he says, "and then just suck their brains out," were the words that he said. Learn from them, and when you've learned everything from that teacher, go to the next teacher and so forth. He says, because in your learning and what you learn is where you're going to receive your greatest value. I know in the world today, television is a great teacher of values. Unfortunately, we learn many negative values because of this. There are a few good values in there if we watch the right programs and the right channels. Internet teaches values. Unfortunately, there you can find good as well as bad. But if you want to find good values, you can find it on the internet. Also, religion is a great source of values. I encourage you to have some form of religion in your life, be it formal or informal, but have a way of looking at what are the core values that you're going to live in your life and share with your family. And when you get married, sit down and talk about your values. What you're, as husband and wife, what are going to be the core values you want your family to live by? This is going to be very important. So, the next question that I have written down for you, let's go back to that page, is question number 3. And on question 3, it says, what are going to be the sources of values you're going to use in your life? What sources you're going to go to purposefully to improve the values that you have in your life, which of course will improve who you become. In this section, I'd like to talk to you about writing a personal mission statement. In fact, I put together in your guidebook a mission statement creation guide. Before I dive into that and go through that with you, I'd like to talk to you a bit about the importance of mission statements and how it's useful in writing your core beliefs. A mission statement to me is a statement that's written down that talks about where you're going to go in life, who you are going to become. What is your sense of purpose in life? Where are you going? I like the idea of a mission statement or a statement of purpose as a title on this statement that we're going to craft together. Now, to me, it's important to write this down. Many people feel, well, I have a sense of purpose. It's in my mind. It guides me. I'm doing okay. I find great value and excitement that people have when they take the mission statement out of their mind and they write it down. In the past, I challenged people to go away and just write their mission statements and bring it back, and I found that they just didn't quite know how to do it. That's why I put together the guide. And this guide enables you to think through and to find those elements that will be important for you to have in your life to guide your life. If you do not have a statement of purpose, this is a wonderful time to create one. If you already have a mission statement or core values you've written down, this is an opportunity for you to review them and hopefully to improve them. So the statement of purpose talks about what you want to achieve in your life. And the core of that is who you want to become in your life. This is the very core. It's less of a statement of what you want to have in your life, the possessions and the doing, but that's okay. You can add those in there. You can talk about wealth in a mission statement, the type of wealth you want to have, how wealthy you want to become. That's just fine. But don't make it only a wealth statement, a wealth achieving statement. Make sure that you have something in there that talks about who you are, the characteristics of who you are going to become. It's vital that we do this. Now, let me say this. Your mission statement can be written in many ways. I literally have had people write it to music. They sing their mission statement. There are people that love music. I've had people who write it in poetry. They have it written down in poetry. I've had other people who've written a statement in one word, and that one word was all that they needed to be their guide. I've had other people do it in a sentence. Some of the best mission statements I've personally written and have seen have been approximately 1 page long. So the size and the shape of it doesn't matter. What matters is the statement that you come up with is something that is truly inspirational to you. And by inspiration, it creates something that you want to achieve in your life. It truly personifies you in the future. It is something that you want to have. Not that your mother wants you to have. Not that your father wants you to have. It's okay, it can align with that, but this is what you want to have. I'm not saying that what mothers and fathers want for you is not good, but I want you to have ownership and accountability of these words that you're going to write down, because these words will enable you to become a far better person when you live to each of these words. So let's get engaged quickly on this, and let's start off with going to your Mission Statement Creation Guide, Part A. So in Part A, we're going to see some questions, and I'm going to go to question number 1 first. Part A, number 1. Okay? This is what it says. It says, imagine that you are 85 years old. You have lived a good life. You are truly wealthy. All your friends and family are holding a large party for you. They're in a big banquet hall. It's full of friends and neighbors and family. 7 different people stand in front of the room with a microphone, and each one of them shares a different character trait about you. They previously talked about this, and they selected 7 different character traits. What do you want those 7 people to say? So first of all, write down the character trait. There's 7 places to write that down. So write the 7 character traits, and then write a statement that describes that. Now let me tell you why I'm having you do this. First of all, I want you to truly project yourself towards the end of your life. I don't want to project you forward to your death. I want you to be there to enjoy this. This is not something that they're going to put on your tombstone. This is something that you can enjoy with them. Here you are, you've worked hard for this moment. You've worked hard for what these people are going to say. Write down what you truly want them to say, not what they would say today, what you want them to say in the future. Use your imagination. We have wonderful imaginations in our life. We can fly, we can sing, we can talk. We can do all sorts of things in our imagination. In this case, use the imagination to create something that you truly in your heart want to achieve. Paint a picture of that person. This is just exactly, if you were an artist, it would be painting a portrait of yourself of the future. And this is painting those characteristics. That's what you're crafting, okay? So take time to do that right now. Stop your DVD, write that down, and then come back. Okay, now let's go on to, in part A, let's go into section 2, okay? And in this one, it's going to talk about listing 3 people who you really admire. I've talked about heroes today. These may be personal heroes to you. Who are some of the people that you truly admire in your life? Now, these are probably people that you know. Usually when I ask a person, I ask them, who did you write down? I find out 80% of the time they've written down a family member. So it's perfectly okay to write down a family member. Doesn't have to be. It's any person. Select 3 of them. Now, why am I asking you to do this? Let me tell you the why behind it before you do it. Those people will be sources of values to you. Their characteristics and who they are will have great influence in your life. You will admire them. And you may not have consciously thought about it before. So what I want you to do is to write down the person's name and then write down what you admire in each one of them. In other words, what are the characteristics that they have that you would like to be a part of your life? You don't have to write down their weaknesses. Every person has weaknesses. Write down the strengths. Focus on those things that enable you to be a better and a more positive person. And so take the time now. So write down 3 people, just 3. You can make it more if you want. And then write down by the side of their name, what are the characteristics that you admire in them? So pause your DVD, take the time to do that right now. Let's now go to part B. Part B of your mission statement talks about 3 questions that are useful questions, and I'll introduce these to you one at a time. The first question says, what type of special skills would you like to have? Skills. Normally, you're paid in life by the execution of your skills. That's the value that you create. Select those skills very carefully. I've chosen for my skills as a little bit of public speaking, of teaching, of counseling, of mentoring people. I really focus, in doing that, I focus on the skill of listening. I really think it's important that I gain the skill of listening and understanding. I'm trying to improve on that, and it helps me when I improve in the skill of listening. It helps me with my teaching. It helps me with my mentoring that I have. So that's one of the skills, to give you an example. There are other skills that I like to have. For example, I like to garden. I like to work with my hands. There are skills of crafting and creating. I like to have skills that are beyond my profession. I enjoy the skill of working with computers. I find that's a very useful skill. I bought one of the very first computers ever made because I could see that in the future the computers were something that are going to be as useful to people as using a telephone is. And it's so true. I see this in the world today, and I see the changing of computers. So what skill are you going to have that you're going to enjoy, you're going to use professionally? You can use it in your social life. It could be skiing. It could be any of those skills that are unique that's going to help you be happy and possibly even create wealth. So list a few of those skills. Then when you have those skills listed, what I want you to do is think about some of the things you want to enjoy doing in your life. What are some of the special experiences that you want to have? There was a gentleman that was age 80, I think it was 81, wrote a list of 100 experiences he wanted to have before he died. Now, these were no small experiences. He wanted to climb tall mountains. He didn't put Everest down there, but he put some tall mountains. He wanted to float down the Amazon. He wanted to see Europe. There's a whole variety of things he wanted to have. Before he passed away, he had accomplished the vast majority of them. In fact, recently there's a movie out called The Bucket List. So create your own bucket list. What are some of the things that you would like to accomplish and do in your life? The reason I'm having you do this is we don't want to get too serious about life because there's fun and enjoyment in it. And those experiences, in many cases, are the fun, the joy, the experiences that we have in life. And we want to have fun. I enjoy having fun. One of the most enjoyable things I do right now is I take my grandchildren fishing, and I love to fish with them. Be it in the ice or be it sitting there, I love to see them giggle and laugh and really have some fun as they pull in the small fish or the large fish. And it's so enjoyable to do that with them. So what are the fun things that you want to do in life? Write those down. So I'm just going to write the word fun. Then number 3, write down, if you would, who are some of the famous people you would like to meet? Don't be surprised of who you may meet in life. Write their names down. Okay? I have met many famous people in this world. In fact, let me tell you my experience with Stephen Covey. I was a student going to school, and Stephen Covey on sabbatical came to visit the school where I was studying in the university. I sat in a lecture hall listening to him give a short lecture. It was about 30 minutes long. And as I was sitting there, I said, wouldn't it be wonderful to work for a man like Stephen Covey? And then I laughed at myself and said, that will never happen. Oh, what little faith I had at that time. Years later, here I am helping him found his company and find that he's a great friend. He endorsed the 8 Keys book. And he's been such a great person in my life. You never know who you'll meet, and you'll never be able to meet them unless you choose to meet them. Now, why did I want to meet these famous people, and I still keep a list? Is because these people, you learn from them, you've got questions you want them to answer, you want to learn from their lives, you want to become in some degree like them. And I suggest to you, keep a list of people that you would like to meet. I say famous, but actually, they don't have to be world-renowned. These can be famous to you. It might be in your community. It might be in a school. But make a list of people that you would like to meet. My guess is you'll eventually meet them. Take time to write these down. Turn off your DVD, then come back. These won't take too long. Okay, let's now move on to Part C. Now in Part C, it's just a simple statement here, but it's one that will take you some time. I think you will understand why I'm going to have you do this. After looking through the previous exercise, and after you look through all of those things, kind of start to synthesize and try to pull together the common virtues and principles that you would like to include in your life. You're probably getting in a zone now. You're introspective. You're looking at yourself. You're becoming aware. And now is the time to start writing down what are the values, the virtues, the principles that you'd like to have. So I'm just going to write down values right here. What are those values? What are those principles you want to have in your life? Now, the reason I'm having you do this, just to review, I've mentioned a couple of times already in this section, but these principles and these values become the core to yourself. They become the core guiding values, and they become the core beliefs that help guide your moral compass to achieving who you want to become in life. And so they're at the very core. Select them carefully, because when writing them, you're committing yourself to achieve them. Write them down, think about them, understand them, and these will become a very useful source to you. So again, turn off the DVD, write those down, and then come back when you're ready. All right, let's do Part D. Part D is a very important step. A great author once said, there is a book inside of each one of us. All we have to do is put pen to paper. I'm going to paraphrase what he says, and I'm going to say, inside of each one of us, there is a mission statement or a statement of purpose. All we have to do now is put pen to paper. Everything we've done so far is hopefully pointing you towards a direction of feeling and sensing of where you want to go with your life. Now what I'd like you to do is to capture these things and melt them together by doing a fast write exercise. In creative writing classes, they will have writers do this in order to stimulate them to start writing. Because people get a writer's block. They sit down at their computer, they sit down with a pen and paper, and they just stop because they're afraid to start because they don't know quite what to write. What I'm going to suggest that you do is write this little phrase first. My purpose in life is to. One more time. My purpose in life is to. Then continue to write for 5 minutes. Look at your watch. Write continuously for 5 minutes. Write as fast as you can, as hard as you can. Do not judge what comes out. Do not try to word craft. Just get the ideas down. Finish the phrase, write it rapidly. Now, why am I having you do this? Because I want you to realize that writing a mission statement is not so much as a creation process as it is a discovery process. You're going to discover what's already in you and allow it to come out on the paper. You're not creating something that's brand new. This has been inside of you probably for years. Maybe since you were born, you are discovering what this purpose in life. Allow it to come out by just engaging your mind in writing. Don't judge it. Don't word craft it. You can always come back later. By the way, it's not going to be just 5 minutes long, because in the future it might become 30 seconds long, or it might become an hour long. I don't know what is going to be useful for you, because you're going to try to create now a statement that inspires you. Worry less about crafting it to be perfect right now. Let it be a rough draft. Okay, so turn off the DVD and begin your writing. Take your 5 minutes to write. The final step of this mission statement creation process is going to be your homework assignment that you do before the next session. This section is written in Part D. It's called Rewrite the Fast Statement that you just wrote in 5 minutes. What I would like you to do is to pick a time. Look at your calendar in the next few weeks and before you listen to the next DVD, and say, when am I going to sit down and rewrite this statement so it really reflects who I am? You've got a rough draft, maybe a very good one. What are you going to do? So the time, that's the when. Where are you going to do it? I suggest you do it in a location that it's inspirational to you and will enable you to write the very best. When I want to write something like this, I like to get out with nature. I like to do it when there's something natural around me. I was raised in the national parks in the United States, and nature is very nurturing to me. So nature nurtures me. So where? You might even want to say, who are you going to do it with? Some people find that they write better when they do this with someone else. That who might be just yourself, but you may want to do it with other people. There's another who is, who are you going to share it with when you're finished? Now, I personally believe that this is a very private statement, and you should only share it with those people that you want to share it with. And I believe that this who is important. So by the next session, have this written until you find and answer this question. Does this statement inspire me? Write it until it inspires you. Write it until it's something that really lifts you. You may not even be able to get it done by next time, but do your very best to do that. Continue to craft this statement until it has true, deep meaning in your life, and it lifts and it enables you to go to a whole new level in your life. This is the purpose of a mission statement, because it becomes a guide. It defines who you are going to become. It will also give you some of the things you're going to do, some of the things you're going to have, but this core of who you're going to become. And this becomes, by the way, the core beliefs that you have that enable you to become a very wealthy person, become a very happy person. So let's just review what we've done with key number 2. Choose your core beliefs. We've talked about some great people, Benjamin Franklin, Mahatma Gandhi. We talked about the beliefs, the virtues they believed in, and the importance for us to have the same. We talked about the desirable human qualities of love, of service, of forgiveness, and there's many others that we should have in our life. These are the things that enable us to fit into society and to build a relationship and become very functioning, very wealthy and happy adults in this world. We talked about looking at not just valuing money, of balancing money with other values, which will enable you to find greater happiness beyond wealth. And we've talked about a long list of valuable principles that you can apply. These are very useful for us. You may want to select those principles or others to form some of your core values. Then we've talked about the importance of writing your core mission statement and the core beliefs that you have. And we actually walked through a workshop that we did together. And we went through that creation guide. Thank you very much for listening to the second key. I look forward to sharing the third key with you in the future.